Good evening and welcome into a new edition of Crunch Time Nightly here on ESTV Productions. I am Wags alongside Scott and Joe, bringing you the latest in the news in sports. And boy, guys, we had a big day in the world of sports. But before we get to that, how are you guys doing? It's been about a week since I've really gotten a chance to see you guys. How are things going for you?
Pretty good. Me and Scott and I have had some interesting discussions over the past week, and it's been fun, man. You should try to catch up.
Yeah, it's been a week, man. I'll put it like that. It's been a week.
I can definitely understand that and relate, no question. And like I said, there's a ton of sports news that we've got to get to tonight because there's never a dull day in sports, apparently. I mean, we had the NCAA tournament drop their bracket yesterday, and I thought, okay, means we're going to have a couple of days of being able to just talk about that, get ourselves leading up into the tournament. But no, the NFL comes along and drops a bunch of signings. The NHL has things going on, including the Blues-Kings being postponed tonight, a potential retirement in Major League Baseball, and COVID is already striking its ugly head when it comes to the tournaments as well. Let's go ahead and start with that first because that is kind of the most relevant story right now. UConn women's head coach Geno Auriemma has tested positive for COVID. He's going to be out the first likely 2 rounds of the women's bracket. And the big interesting piece that I came away with is the fact that he's actually already had his 2 doses of the vaccine. He received his first dose about a month ago. His second shot was last Wednesday, which means he was 9 days away from being fully vaccinated. Is this something that kind of scares either of you guys about the potential issues we could have coming in not just the women's bracket, but the men's bracket as well?
Yeah, I mean, we could see a whole lot of headaches happen in the next few days. Definitely. And I am a little concerned about that.
I'm a little concerned about that as well, and that's why I asked Wags about this, and I'll ask you right now, Scott. Do you think that SLU ends up getting into the tournament based off of COVID itself? Because I know they're that third placement team.
It's possible. I mean, teams are going to do everything they can to figure out a way to be there and play. And, we know that Kansas and Virginia had already traveled and are on their way or might already be in Indianapolis. So I kind of doubt it at this point. But, something could still spring up between now and Friday where a team has to pull out. So we will see what happens in the next couple of days. I'd say there's probably a 25% chance that SLU still ends up in the tournament.
And you got Virginia right now still in Virginia quarantining themselves. So there is that possibility that team may drop out. And that's another question that kind of brought up in my mind. Was there a 4 seed? If the team that replaces them has to come in, are they a 4 seed? Are they going to jumble up the matchups from that? I haven't really read anything on that, so I'm not entirely sure how that works. But if a team were to be replaced by one of these first 4 outs, does it take their spots or do they jumble the matchups?
Yeah, I don't know. I have not heard exactly how that's going to work either. I mean, I would assume that they would slide into that game, but then I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that will work as far as how you're ranked and how you're seeded. That will be a really interesting conundrum for the NCAA if this happens.
That would be a big-time nightmare for all of the seeders, all of the bracket, I guess, creators. It would be tough, but there's a good possibility of that happening.
I mean, I don't know though. Well, I think it may be something that happens after the tournament starts, and that's where the headache comes in more, I think.
Yeah. And I'm sure they've got, they've had enough time that they've sat around. I'm sure they've got contingency plans for just about anything that could happen, so I'm sure that they've got plan A, plan B, plan G, plan Z probably for worst case scenario. So I'm sure that they're prepared for the possibility of that happening. You just hope that you don't get into the tournament and all of a sudden you have 3 or 4 or 5 teams that can't play, because then it becomes a real mess.
Yeah, and it will mess up people's brackets left and right. I don't think you're going to have a perfect bracket this year. But speaking of brackets, don't forget to join our bracket challenge. it could be crazy this year, so anybody has a chance to win. Make sure you go to our Facebook page, and pinned at the top of our page is the link to our bracket challenge. Password is CT2021. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've already got some people signed up and ready to go. You've got a chance to win a limited edition, one-of-a-kind tournament champion t-shirt, among a bunch of other prizes that we're going to have available for our winners. So make sure you get in there, make your picks before Friday, because that's or Thursday, actually, before Thursday. Get them in before Thursday. So that you can take part in the challenge and have your chance at winning a bunch of really, really cool prizes from us as well. Like I said, go to our Facebook page, very top. There's a link to it. Click on it. The password is CT2021. Go up against the host and see if you got a chance at beating us. I mean, this of all years to be able to potentially beat the sports wizards in this world, it's this year when no one knows what the hell the bracket is going to do.
And there are definitely some interesting matchups and potential interesting matchups in those first couple of rounds as well. So it's going to be a fun start to the tournament, right from the very beginning, from that very first play-in game when you have Michigan State and UCLA meeting up in a play-in game. I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that just to start.
Who would have thought that Michigan State and UCLA would be a play-in game? And I'll be perfectly honest, I never go against Tom Izzo and Michigan State in those kinds of games. I've got Michigan State winning that one. There's something about them that even in the years where you think they're down, the game that you think, oh yeah, that's an easy win. No, they ended up winning that game. And they ended up going to the Final Four. I don't have them in my Final Four this year, but don't be shocked if they somehow make it.
Yeah, no, I was about to say it as you were saying. Never ever count out Tom Izzo.
I have a rather well, if they get there, I have a rather a big time upset, and I think Mizzou and Gonzaga are both a part of that bracket, and I have Mizzou beating Gonzaga.
Well, if you got Mizzou beating Gonzaga, wouldn't they be a part of that bracket?
No, yeah, so they're a part of that. Well, they'd have to beat Oklahoma, and clue me in on this, guys. How good is Oklahoma's basketball program? We all know about their football program.
They're usually pretty good. They've had the same kind of year Mizzou's had. I think they've lost 5 out of their last 7. They're struggling down the stretch. So it's going to be a good game. They'll probably be favored, but I would say it's probably going to be by about 3 or 4 points.
I think it'll be a toss-up, but for some reason, that Big 12 matchup that used to be somehow or another, Mizzou just can't seem to get over Oklahoma, whether it's on the court or on the field. I have Mizzou winning that game. I think it's going to be close. And would it shock me if Oklahoma either runs away with it or just ekes out a win? No, it wouldn't surprise me at all. That's why it's a great 8-9 matchup. These teams are right there, razor thin margin of error. So I can see it going either way. I've got Mizzou, but I don't see them getting past Gonzaga. As much as we can sit there and say, oh, well, Gonzaga hasn't necessarily played a whole lot of people, I think they have played a lot of good teams throughout the season, not just early on. I mean, you can look at that Mizzou win over Illinois and go, oh, well, Mizzou beat Illinois, but that was early in the season. It's a different kind of win at that point. Gonzaga's had games throughout the entire year that have shown you that they can match up against anybody good at any point in the year. It's not like they got the good wins early on. They got good wins throughout the entire season. And that's why I think Gonzaga has a real legitimate shot at cutting down the nets in Indianapolis.
Well, Wags, there is a reason that we haven't had a number 1 overall seed win the tournament. Why do you think this team is much better than any other team that's tried to do it?
Experience. I mean, they've been there so long, and Mark Few is a great coach. I mean, he really is. To take Gonzaga from where they were, which was one of those Cinderella teams, to now being a perennial top team. And that's the other crazy thing about that is Mark Few's been there forever. He's had opportunities to go other places, and he's stuck with Gonzaga. So I think that right there just shows you that the work they put in, the commitment to excellence that school has, I just think it's time for them to have a shot at that. Now, I didn't sit there saying I have them winning it all. I just said they have a chance to win.
No, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying hypothetically. So, Wags, how nervous are you about that first round matchup for your North Carolina Tar Heels? Because that is a tough game. That against Wisconsin. How are you feeling going into that first ball?
I'm worried. I am definitely worried for sure, especially after that game against Florida State where they kind of let it slip away. They had that game won, I think, and things kind of unraveled there at the end. But I tell you what, Caleb Love, pride of Missouri, I think he's going to rise up and have a hell of a game against Wisconsin. I think they're going to push their next round matchup to the brink. But I unfortunately, I don't see them making it past the second round. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they go deep, but I don't know for sure if they're going to be able to do that. Scott, what teams are you looking at to maybe make some noise? I know I've got Eastern Washington beating Kansas, but that's mainly just because I hate Kansas.
Right. Team that you really got to watch out for because they're really good in the SEC and they haven't gotten talked about a whole lot are the Razorbacks. I think Arkansas is going to make a pretty solid run. I think they're going to be a Sweet 16 team, maybe even an Elite 8 team. So watch out for the Razorbacks. And then there's a couple of trap games for number one seeds early in this tournament. Joe talked about it. I don't think Mizzou can beat Gonzaga, but it wouldn't shock me if they did either because, they did beat Illinois early, but Mizzou showed all through the season. I mean, yeah, these last couple of weeks they've struggled, but, Illinois wasn't their only win. I mean, they beat Oregon. They beat Alabama. They beat Arkansas. They beat Tennessee. They showed through the season that they could beat some of the top teams in the country. So I can see Mizzou giving them a game, and if things go their way, I think Mizzou could give them. And then the other one, Illinois, if they run into that Loyola Chicago team, Sister Pat, that could be an issue for them. I think they get past it, but I think that'll be a dogfight if that happens.
Theo chimes in. Florida State is another one of those teams that could make some noise in the tournament as well. I look at it and I'm actually looking at the Big Ten and sitting there going, there's a real chance if everything goes to plan that you may have 3 Big Ten teams in the Final Four. I mean, I know that there's so many things that it takes to get to that point, but the Big Ten was really, really good this year. And you look at Michigan, you look at Illinois, you look at Iowa, you look at Ohio State. I mean, there's a lot of high-seeded Big Ten teams that could really make that push and really make the Final Four a Big Ten bonanza.
Yeah, and a lot of the experts are going with that, saying they think there's going to be 3 teams. To be totally honest with you, I've looked at the brackets, but I haven't dug into it deep yet. I still haven't filled out a bracket yet, so I'm gonna have to really start doing some serious studying on brackets here in the next couple of days.
So you're saying I'm the only one on this dais who has filled out a bracket?
Yeah, but you like jump at it. You just throw stuff at the wall and go. Like I wanna dig in a little bit and I want to look at how these teams have fared the last month or so, who they've played, how they've gotten to where they've gotten. I do like to dig a little bit deeper, but there's nothing wrong with going with your gut either, because the more you think about it, the more times and chances you have of making the wrong choice for the right reasons, but the wrong choice. So neither method is tried and true. I'm just excited to see what we've got from our fans that are going to be a part of it as well. A couple other notes on the NCAA before we go to break. Stanford, UConn, North Carolina State, South Carolina, the top seeds in the women's bracket. I dare you. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, women's bracket. I dare you. You need to watch some of these women's basketball games because they are just as good as the men's, sometimes even better. And the drama around them is intense. And you've got some very, very good programs that you need to watch out for as well. I mean, South Carolina has been rising the last couple of years. The few that they've had with Missouri has been intense. So definitely check those out. And then just a couple of news and notes from the coaching ranks. Iowa extended Fran McCaffrey. He took Iowa to the Big Ten semis, 8th ranked in the nation, top number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. And on the flip side, Indiana has canned Archie Miller after a 12-15 season. 0 NCAA tournament appearances, but they could have gotten in last year if not for COVID. Names that have come up, John Beilein, Chris Beard, and Scott Drew as potential guys that could go to Indiana. Quickly before we go to break, do you see any of those 3 guys making the trip to Indiana, or are they going to have to go outside the box?
If it's one of those 3 guys, I think it'll be Beilein. That would be my pick of those 3 guys.
I think they have to go outside the box. I think you need new blood. That's what I'm going to go with. Where do you think if those guys don't go to Indiana, where do those guys end up? Because they are good coaches.
I'm not. Well, they all have teams, so they're not necessarily going anywhere. It's more about the college buyout of, hey, we're going to steal a coach. So
right.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Indiana does. I'll put it this way: they had basically some donors pony up the $10 million it took to buy out Archie Miller. So I'm sure that the school doesn't have to pay any of that. Some guy came up with that money and said, hey, $10 million to get him out of there. So that means no matter who they're targeting, somebody's going to say, hey, if they want him, they're going to pony up the money. So it's going to be interesting. I think Scott is right along the lines of John Beeline. I think he might be the next guy in. All right, coming back up on Crunch Time after this break, we're going to talk about the NFL because a lot of signings went down today. So we'll take care of that after this. Back here on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions, Wax, Joe, and Scott alongside. All right, let's talk about the NFL because a lot of stuff went down today as far as signings are concerned. So many big names: Gronk, Nelson Aguilar, Jonnu Smith, Bud Dupree, Jameis Winston. Give me your guys' top news as far as signings today. What's the one signing to which team that made you go, huh, interesting?
Go ahead, Joe.
I'm going to say Corey Linsley to the Chargers. And yes, I started it with the Green Bay note yesterday, the NFL segment, today the same way. I'm actually shocked he left Green Bay. Are you guys shocked?
I mean, I guess it kind of goes down to, the culture in Green Bay, maybe not what he's looking for. Jamal Williams is also going to test free agency after Aaron Jones re-signed there. So maybe it's more a testament to what Green Bay's locker room is like, that he doesn't want to be there. But I'm not sure. It's definitely not the big name that you're looking for. But if it's going to hurt your team, it makes sense.
You know what's interesting to me, Wags? Scott, I asked Scott last night about the Aaron Jones signing when it went down. I'm actually shocked based off of our conversations as of late. We thought he'd probably go to Miami. Like, how is Green Bay going to make this work? They're X amount of dollars over the cap right now. So who are the guys you think goes in your mind?
I honestly have no idea. I have not looked at the Green Bay roster. I'm not as involved in the Green Bay roster as you are.
Here's the details of that contract. 4 years, $48 million. $13 million of that is a signing or $13 million signing bonus. And Scott said something yesterday that makes total sense, and I agree with him. Why wouldn't you go up to number 12 and Aaron Rodgers and see if you can restructure his contract so you can keep some of these guys?
So wait, hold on. You're sitting there saying you pissed him off last year when you drafted his replacement. Now this year you're going to go up to him and say, "Hey, can you take less money to keep guys around?"
Wags,
I'm not pissing off Aaron Rodgers any more than I already have.
Wags, here's the thing with that though. Do you want to play on a Super Bowl contender? Then you take that cut.
Were they a Super Bowl contender last year?
In that NFC, yes, because there weren't. Yeah.
So there you go. Why? I mean, you're just saying. So you're going to ask them to take less money to be a Super Bowl contender, even though they were a Super Bowl contender last year.
They were missing some pieces, and I feel like they were missing one wide receiver. There have been talks that they've been in on the wide receiver market. Don't know how true that is because we know how inept they are at getting other wide receivers to come in. So who knows what'll happen? Scott actually brought that point up. Scott, do you still say that now? I mean, do you understand where Wags is coming from?
No, I totally disagree with you, Wags, because here's the thing. Aaron Rodgers has gone public multiple times and bitched and complained that the Packers haven't brought in more weapons, that he's not had this, that he's not had that. So if you want to be a winner and you want to bitch and moan about who's on your team and what your team's doing, then you do what you need to do to win. Look what Patrick Mahomes did in Kansas City today. Look what Travis Kelce did in Kansas City today. These guys are redoing their contracts to make room to bring in new guys, to keep guys, to be a Super Bowl contender. So if Aaron Rodgers really wants to win and that's what it's about for him, then he will do that, whether he's mad that Jordan Love's there or not. If he really wants to win and that's what's important to him, then yeah, I go to him and say, hey, we need to fix this team. You want to be a contender. This is what we have to do to build the team around you.
See, and that's where I get the point. I totally get it. And I think that is the right mindset. If you have a quarterback that wants to win and they want to put the team first, that's the way they're going to go about it. I just don't know if that's Aaron Rodgers. Like, I know he's sitting there and he's bitched about not having the playmakers around him. He has made the players around him better. So, that is definitely an argument against it. But I don't know. I just don't get that vibe that he would do that. And that to me, that's kind of telling. That's kind of sitting there saying this guy wants the spotlight on him, but he also wants to deflect any of the criticism, but he won't take the lumps it takes to make the team better. Now, granted, he does take the hits and he gets back up and keeps on going. And it does seem like he wants to win, but there's just something, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a gut feeling for me or not, but I just don't know if the Packers would approach him with that, if he would actually do that. And I think that's why I'm a little like, I don't know if that's the case.
See, and I agree with you. I'm not sure you do it either, but I think they need to do it because to prove to people like Joe that whine that, oh, poor Aaron Rodgers doesn't have any help, that Aaron Rodgers doesn't really want to win, that it's all about Aaron Rodgers and not really about the team. And I think if he refuses to do that, that would be exactly what he's saying. And that would probably give the Packers the opportunity then to go to their fan base and say, okay, this guy's not a leader. He's not the face of the franchise. He doesn't want to win. And the fans would be more accepting if they would trade him or, next year they cut him or whatever they would do to make Jordan Love or whoever that next quarterback.
Joe, are you getting a little nervous that Green Bay might be going downhill for the next couple of years? Because this could be another messy divorce one way or the other. Are you a little nervous that Green Bay, the shine on them is starting to wane a little bit? A little bit, just because, I believe they didn't do enough to help him to begin with. Aaron Rodgers, that is. He had a good running back in Aaron Jones, and he has a good wide receiver in Adams. And I think they've signed him. Yeah, and outside of that, though, do you trust Marquez Valdez-Scantling? Oh, no. You don't get to play that card. You do not get to play that card because what did you talk about the entire season? MVS, man. MVS. So don't play that card. Okay, so the real answer is it's going to get ugly in Green Bay. I don't know. This is almost turning into a Brett Favre situation where I don't think Rodgers is going to retire. I think they end up trading him, but this is almost becoming – about me instead of win. So if I were the Packers, and I hate to do this because I love Aaron Rodgers as a player, I'd say move on if he's not willing to do it. Well, if he's not willing to do it, yes. I hate to say that too. Yeah. But do you think Jordan Love would fit that system going forward? That's a great question. You haven't seen him play in it.
Right. And I'm going to argue with you one more time before we move on from the Packer thing. Brett Favre was me to a certain extent when he did want the media exposure, but he was all about winning. Brett restructured his contract multiple times. He went to players' houses. He did whatever he could to get the best players and begged for the best players in Green Bay. So to say that it wasn't all about him as far as, I want all the money and I want to be, it's just all about me. Brett was all about winning and competing and playing football.
That he was. All right. Joe kind of answered the question, but Scott, I haven't gotten yours. What's the big one today as far as the NFL signings that made you go, that's interesting?
To be totally honest, Wags, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be around a whole lot of news today, so you're going to have to fill me in. I don't know exactly who all signed today.
Okay. All right. So you got Gronk's back with Tampa, 1 year, $10 million. The Patriots signed Nelson Aguilar and Jonnu Smith. The Titans added Bud Dupree. Raiders get Ngokwu, which is, I think, a big move. The Chiefs really made Patrick Mahomes happy today by signing Thuney to a deal from New England. Jameis Winston re-signed with the Saints. Corey Davis to the Jets. Those are kind of the big ones that went down today.
I think the stuff that the Patriots did, because the one that I did see you didn't talk about, they also got the linebacker from the Ravens too. So I think the Patriots probably that amount of moves, probably the big thing. You know, Joe and I talked about last night that Belichick was going to try to rebuild this team, and he wasn't going anywhere because he wanted to be a playoff team in New England without Brady. So I think all of these moves already are a big sign that watch out for the Patriots because they're going to be a playoff contender next year.
So you look at that,
Cam Newton.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, look at that AFC East. I mean, Buffalo is good. They've got a lot of weapons. You look at Miami, up and coming. They were a team that was right there to the end. Unfortunately, the Jets are still there, so at least you all have a team to whip up on. But then you have New England that was kind of there in that 500-ish range with a lot of guys missing. So you get those guys back, and then you add actual receivers. I mean, when was the last time? And I'm not saying Nelson Aguilar and Jonnu Smith are like top tier receivers, but they are still pretty good receivers. When was the last time you looked at New England and go, hey, they've got at least two guys that are dangerous in the pass catching game?
Yeah, oh yeah. And Joe said even with Cam Newton. When Cam Newton was really, really good, do you remember who his best wide receiver was? When they went to the playoff, went to the Super Bowl?
Wasn't it Steve Smith?
Do what?
Wasn't it Steve Smith? Or am I wrong on that?
Steve Smith was his big play wide receiver. The guy that caught all the passes, that was the go-to guy, was their tight end, Greg Olsen. Yep. You give Cam Newton a guy like Jonnu Smith at tight end. That's exactly what Cam Newton needs. That's a huge move for Cam Newton.
It certainly is. Jonnu Smith was a guy that I had on my fantasy team the last couple of years because he was, a consistent pass catcher. He had some injuries last year that kind of derailed his season. But yeah, putting a guy like Smith on there, and New England's been known, obviously, to have great tight end play for the last 10 to 15 years. Yes, some of them are murderers and whatnot, but for the most part, their tight ends have been very, very good. You look at Gronk now back with Tampa for another year. That's their go-to bread and butter. So getting a guy like Jonnu in there is going to be huge for Cam Newton. Like you said, Greg Olsen was his favorite target in Carolina. I think it's a huge move, and it's scary to sit there and go, wow, 1 year removed, and all of a sudden the Patriots are back. And they have a decent draft pick this year as well, which not even sure where they're going to go with that. I mean, they could draft a wide receiver in the first round as well, or they could bolster that defense. Who knows? I mean, it's Bill Belichick. You never know what he's going to do when it comes to the draft.
That is very true.
Very true. I was actually shocked that Cam Newton is staying there. I'm shocked they didn't go elsewhere. Are you guys?
Who else would they have gone after?
Drafted a quarterback. Drafted, maybe tried to get up there and get Lawrence, or, just stuff. Didn't we have those conversations before about potentially maybe New England moving up and drafting Lawrence?
We talked about New England. We talked about New England bottoming out and being the first round pick going into last season when everybody opted out, but they're not going to move up. We kind of talked about this last night. I still think Mac Jones is the perfect quarterback for Bill Belichick in that system.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. So lots of other things to come as far as the NFL is concerned. A lot more signings. For me, I think Bud Dupree going to Tennessee is a big move for the Titans, just shoring up that defense as well. Very excited to see him playing a little bit closer to home, obviously the Mizzou grad. So that's going to be a lot of fun to see as well. Lots more to come in the NFL. Jameis Winston back with the Saints after the Drew Brees retirement, which was shocking but not shocking at the same time. We'll see how that plays out with Winston and Taysom Hill there. Plenty more in the NFL to come for sure. Coming up next year on Crunch Time, we're going to dive into the NHL. The Blues and Kings are postponed tonight, so we're going to be talking about other things in the NHL. So we'll be right back here on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions.
Hey Crunch Time fans, my name is Graham Forsyth. I'm the host of Coffee with Graham and the Prospect Show on ASTV Productions. On Coffee with Graham, I talk to athletes, coaches, and whoever else involved in the amateur sports scene in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And on the Prospect Show, I talk to the best young hockey prospects from around North America. You can catch all the coverage on ASTV Productions. You can catch Coffee with Graham on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And for the Prospect Show, that show airs every Friday at 8 p.m. Central Time. Hope to see you there. Have a good one.
And that's one of the amazing shows that we have here on ASTV Productions. So many great things that you can catch out on the network. So make sure you go to the websites as well, so you can catch all of the shows, including Coffee with Graham and the Prospect Show. Just a lot of great content there as well. All right, let's jump into the NHL. Like I said, no game tonight for the Blues and Kings, which is a little disappointing. It's not because of COVID. Can you believe it? A game postponed this year, and it's not because of COVID? Apparently, a blizzard in Colorado prevented the Kings from flying out, and they were not going to be able to play tonight. But there is good news in the Blues camp. Not only is Tyler Bozak set to return, but Jaden Schwartz was out on the ice practicing with the team today. Robert Thomas was doing some practicing, not with the team, but on his own, which means he's getting close to return. The Blues are the walking wounded, but they are getting close to getting back to full strength. Parayko out there as well. Are you guys sitting there thinking that, yeah, we're in the doldrums right now, but watch out because the Blues might be coming back very, very soon?
This is something Scott and I talked about a lot. And, basically what we've been saying is, tread water, but these guys are going to come back. And when they do come back, it's going to be a hell of a run. It's going to take a little bit. I will say this. When these guys come back, it's going to take a little bit to gel because you haven't played a game in, a couple months. If you've been injured. So give it some time, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah, they're going to come back. Guys are going to start coming back. And, the ultimate goal is to get everybody healthy as you go down the stretch and get close to playoff time. And it looks like that's going to happen. So it's definitely good news for the Blues today for sure.
It certainly is. So we're very much looking forward to that. Other news and notes in the NHL. Artemi Panarin returned on Saturday after being out after the whole Russia trying to blacklist him for beating up a woman that may have not actually happened. So it was really good to see him back. I know that there were a lot of concerns when it came to his family, himself, especially for going up against Vladimir Putin. Good to see him back. Got an assist in the 4-0 win against the Bruins on Saturday. And tonight, the Rangers, unfortunately, were beaten by the Flyers 5-4 in overtime, but Panarin did have a goal. Just really good to see him back and being able to play hockey because the Rangers were kind of floundering without him. But now that he's back, there seems to be a little bit more of a spark in the Rangers lineup, and they're right there on the cusp of a playoff berth. And him coming back might be able to push them back over the edge and maybe knock out a team like the Bruins.
Well, and the thing is, didn't we talk about this team a couple of years ago? Fastest rebuild in NHL history, or would it seem that way? This is a very talented team with a very talented goaltender in Georgiev. This team's going to be good for a long time. And
pretty sure Shesterkin was
Shesterkin too.
Getting most of his injury.
They have a good goaltending tandem. Thank you. I wasn't thinking of the other goalie's name. Thank you. But Shesterkin and Georgiev, you have Zibanejad. You have all these young players on the ice. It's going to turn into wins, and it's going to turn into a cup. I guarantee you for New York. I like that team. I don't know what it is, Wax. Do you see why I would like a team like New York?
I think you like it because they're big lights, big city.
Well, no,
they've got a couple of good prospects and they've got a couple of overpriced forwards. Yes. But tell me again who they have on defense that makes you go, yeah, that's a cup contender.
That was the big issue. That's the big issue is their defense. But who knows? Maybe as they get toward the trade deadline, you see a big name defenseman go there and it changes that defense. So the one thing about Panarin, though, I've kind of always liked him. A closet liked him because he was in Chicago. But there was a reason why Vladimir Tarasenko pushed the Blues to try to get him here. He changes the team. So it's nice to see him back.
I agree. I agree.
It's good to see him. It's good to see him back, and that whole story should make everybody that sometimes questions the United States government really happy that we live here, and you're not living in a country where if you say something bad against the president, you have to fear for your life or your livelihood, which is pretty much what happens in Russia all the time. So it's good to see him back and that nothing happened to him or his family, because that's not always the case over there when things like this happen.
Not the case there, not the case in North Korea, not the case sometimes even in a place like China as well. I mean, we had Jack Ma had some stuff going on as well. I mean, if you're not familiar with him, definitely check out the name Jack Ma. There's a lot of things going on across the world, and there are some reasons why we're lucky to live where we live. So yeah, definitely glad to have him back. Unfortunately, a guy that's not going to be back for the foreseeable future is a guy like Jack Eichel. He is out right now with not a season-ending injury, but an injury that's going to keep him out for a little while. He had to leave the team and travel. He's going to be quarantined for the next 7 days because of that trip, but there's been no timetable for him to come back. I tell you what, I don't know why he'd want to come back, because Buffalo is egregious this year. 16 points in the season right now. 16. That's terrible. Carter Hutton has been getting most of the starts because their goaltending prospect, Linus Ullmark, has been out for most of the season, and he's definitely looking overmatched in Buffalo. They got beat 6-0 by the Capitals tonight. Ovechkin getting goal number 717, which ties Phil Esposito for 6th all time. Are we in the midst of another Ryan O'Reilly situation where a young guy like Jack Eichel, who should be much more successful than he is, maybe forcing his way out of Buffalo to try and get into a situation where he loves hockey again? He hasn't come out and said he doesn't love hockey like Ryan O'Reilly did, but the seeds seem to be there. And I'm a little worried that if he sticks around, you might be ruining the career of a potential superstar.
For me, it all comes down to when's Buffalo going to trade him? Because at this point, they've been out of the playoffs the last, Wags, correct me if I'm wrong here. It's been over 10 years, hasn't it? Or has it been at 10?
It's been right around that mark.
So the thing is, they need to do something. And I thought drafting Jack Eichel was the beginning of that renaissance where we were going to start seeing this team, play better. I was watching a video recently. The Buffalo Bills owner is the same owner as the Buffalo Sabres. So the good sign that I saw was Buffalo started to turn a corner at the Bills. So I was thinking, you know what? Maybe the Buffalo Sabres will do the same thing, knowing the owner. But he's basically wrecking the Sabres while rising with the Bills. That just makes no sense to me. Wouldn't you want both your franchises to be on the up and up? And on Eichel, he needs to get out of there so fast. It reminds me so much of a Ryan O'Reilly scenario.
Well, let me just ask you this: which team do you think would make you more money?
Yeah, the Buffalo Bills, because more seating, TV money. The NFL, I think, makes more money in general than the NHL, so I kind of understand that.
Yeah, it certainly does, and that's the reason why Buffalo is struggling. I mean, you look at the Colorado Avalanche. Yes, he Stan Kroenke owns the Rams, he owns the Avalanche, but the way that it's set up, because they're in separate cities, he doesn't run the Avalanche. It's more like his son runs the Avalanche. So the son's making his money, Stan's making his money in LA. That's why you can see a guy that owns multiple teams, having multiple teams be successful, because they've got that split ownership. When you have one group owning two teams in the same city, you're obviously going to gravitate more towards the teams that are going to make more money. And that's exactly what's going on. The NFL pulls in more money. The Bills, being good, pulls in more money. The Sabres, they just don't. And yeah, they want to make money. They're probably, if anything, they're probably coming close to breaking even, maybe losing a little money at this point. And I think they're okay with that. They came in when they bought the Sabres, the Pegulas, they upgraded a lot of stuff. They upgraded the practice facility. They did a lot of really, really good things that got people excited. But I just don't think they're hockey-minded people, and they haven't brought in hockey minds either. They got Ralph Kruger at coach, and he's just not, I don't think he's the guy for American hockey. He's definitely got a great European hockey mind, and he's been successful over in Europe, but he just has not done well in America. And I think that's part of the reason they don't have the right personnel in place to grow a hockey team. And it's going to take a big time change. Now they got Botterill out of there, who was the GM who traded Ryan O'Reilly. So that doesn't mean that you got somebody in there that's going to trade Jack Eichel for peanuts. But I'll say this, if any team is looking for a potential superstar, I would call Buffalo and say, hey, what's it going to take to bring Mr. Eichel to our team? Because he could be pretty good for a team in the next couple of years.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Wags. Wasn't there another I think it was Detroit. Didn't Illich own the Tigers and the Red Wings? Or am I wrong on that?
He still does, but
okay.
But look at it this way. Yes, you can sit there and say Major League Baseball makes more money than the NHL, but when he was he still currently is the owner of the Red Wings, but for the longest time, which team was winning championships? And what do championships bring? Money.
Money.
So,
didn't he own the Lions too? Or is that another owner? Completely different.
The Fords have owned the Lions for a long time.
No,
okay, that's on me. Okay, my bad.
Yeah. So the Fords have definitely.
Yeah.
But look at what Illich has done for the downtown sports landscape, though. I mean, the new arena, the new baseball stadium, the complex that he's got down there that he's been building. He is investing in both angles. And yeah, the Red Wings aren't good right now. The Tigers are kind of on a downswing as well. But I think he's got more of a mindset for sports, which is weird because he's the Little Caesars guy. So, I mean, pizza and sports, they go together, but they don't necessarily go together. But he's done pretty good for the situation in Detroit. Some scores in the NHL. Predators beat the Lightning 4-1. As mentioned earlier, the Flyers a 5-4 winner over the Rangers in overtime. The Florida Panthers continue their pretty good season with a 6-3 win over Joe Quenneville's former team, the Blackhawks. Penguins a 4-1 winner over Boston. The Canucks a 3-2 victory in overtime over Ottawa. As mentioned earlier, the Capitals 6-0 over the Sabres, and the Canadiens beat the Jets 4-2. And what's quickly becoming an ultra-competitive Northern Conference when it comes to the NHL. Toronto and Winnipeg have kind of been holding court at the top there. But I don't know. Montreal still, in my mind, still has a good chance at making some noise in that North Division, right?
They do. And you talk about Toronto. Toronto, I believe, has lost 6 out of the last 7, something like that. They've been struggling. And
against Winnipeg, too.
Yeah. And that's the one team you do not want to struggle against. Connor Hellebuyck coming off of a Vezina season. You knew he was going to be good. And, I mean, come on, Lex. You didn't think – come on. He won the Vezina.
Yeah, and how many times have you seen a goalie win a Vezina and then absolutely crap the bed the next year?
Yeah, but you don't luck yourself into a Vezina.
No, I'm not saying he lucked into the Vezina. But seriously, tell me when Connor Hellebuyck has put together consistent back-to-back good seasons.
I'll give you that.
So, I mean, who's to say you knew what you were going to see out of Hellebuyck this year? I'm being completely honest. I've never seen him put back-to-back seasons together that are really good. The 1 year, 2019, he looked great. The Blues beat him. 2020, not so much. And yeah, he won the Vezina, but I haven't really seen him put back-to-back seasons together where I just go, okay, now I'm confident in calling him a good goaltender. He is a good goaltender. Don't get me wrong, but I haven't seen the consistency where I go, that's a guy I want in net for me.
Did he earn that Vezina in your mind?
I mean, it's hard to tell because last year was such a weird season. Because he didn't look all that great in the bubble, I can tell you that much. So during the year, yeah, he probably definitely earned it, and there are a lot of guys that had a chance. Sergei Bobrovsky, I mean, look at him. He was great in Columbus, was in the Vezina consideration, and then last year, where'd he go?
Went to Florida, and he severely underwhelmed.
Exactly. So, it happens. It definitely happens. All right. We're going to take another quick break here on Crunch Time. We're going to come back and talk Major League Baseball because it is spring training. Things are going on. And there's a rumor going around that a certain player that the Cardinals seem to dislike a lot might be retiring. So make sure you check that up next here on Crunch Time. Tell you what, we have some good music on our commercials. A lot of good move around kind of music.
Like I almost want to start dancing, but you can still see me even though we're on commercials. So I don't think you'd want to see that.
Yeah, let's not. All right, let's talk about the Major League Baseball season right now here on Crunch Time. Quickly, first off the bat, YouTube is going to broadcast 21 games this season, exclusive to YouTube. I know this is the third season that they're doing this. I know you guys weren't totally on board with it when they first unveiled this a couple years ago. Are you still not on board with it? Is it something that kind of pisses you off, or are you kind of just like, it happens?
Go ahead, Scott.
I think it's stupid because it takes away a huge chunk of your viewing fan base, because there's still a lot of baseball fans that don't have YouTube or don't watch YouTube, or so I think it's a bad look. I mean, I know they're trying to reach younger viewers, but I'm just not a fan.
I think it's a bad way, and I know what they're trying to do, and Scott saying that they want to reach younger viewers, but in lieu of this, what could they do to reach those younger viewers? I'll go to you, Wags, first on that, because that's a good question. I mean, what could they do?
Honestly, I don't think there's really much they can do. I mean, you look at what the NFL did with Nickelodeon during the playoffs and kind of making football a little bit more jovial and kid-friendly, I guess. I don't know if you can actually do that with Major League Baseball. It's been around for over 100+ years. I think if you're into it, you're into it. And if you're not, you're not. And trying to force kids with the now short attention spans to sit there for 3 hours and watch a baseball game, I don't know if that's possible. I mean, I think we're at a point now where you have to kind of engender it at a very young age and really get them involved early on to try and keep their attention. But I think if you're trying to reach viewers ages, 8 through 16 right now, I think the ship's already sailed. If they're not fans now, then I don't think you're going to be getting new fans. That's just my thoughts.
Scott?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. The argument about it being too slow, that kids can't sit there and watch that. When kids are watching a 4.5-hour college football game, that there's not action going on all the time, or even a basketball game. Watch college basketball game. Watch that Mizzou game the other night. The second half, the last 10 minutes of that game were so boring I had to turn it off, because after every shot there was a foul and a stoppage, and they were reviewing stuff. So, and kids are still watching that. So I don't buy into that argument. I really don't.
Especially when you're watching the last 5 minutes of a basketball game, or the last minute or two. It seems like it takes like an hour for 1 minute to go by. So I would have to agree with Scott there.
I mean, I think when you're talking about, like, especially college football, at least when I'm watching it, there's not action all the time, but they seem to like jump really quickly between things. And I don't see that as much with baseball. Baseball, a lot of times, it's a static shot. It's so hard to kind of jump cut to different things. I mean, they do it. They do it throughout the broadcast. They'll flip to the fans, or they'll go to the broadcast, or what have you. But I think just when it comes to football, they jump so quickly in between things that short attention span is like, oh, no, something new. Oh, something new. Oh, something new. So even though there's nothing going down on the field, there's something going on the TV where it kind of catches the attention and keeps it there. That's just me. I know everybody else has a different opinion. I get it. It's perfectly fine. That's just the way I kind of see it. The football just jump. Baseball seems to stay kind of static. And I still love watching it. Don't get me wrong. I love watching baseball. It's great. And, going to games, especially being of age, sitting around, talking, hanging out with your friends, drinking beer, watching baseball. That's why it's America's pastime. I still don't know what they can do to make it more appealing to younger kids. I just don't know. And like I said earlier, I just don't know if there is anything they can do to get new fans from that age range. Like I said, I think you have to start it young. I think you have to get kids involved in baseball early on, get them accustomed to what the game is all about, get them invested in keeping score. That's the thing I think gets lost still, is that scorekeeping is a very, very useful tool, not only for learning, but for attention span and just enjoyment of the game, because you're invested at that point. If you can invest your kids in the game, that makes them want to watch it more. And I think if you can get more of that, then you're going to get more fans of a younger age.
That might work.
Yeah,
I mean, Go ahead.
Yeah, except that you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, keeping the score is boring," because you're writing stuff down and you're not. So I understand what you're saying, but there's a lot of people that look at it a different way. One of the things that baseball still has to do is we've talked about a million times to get younger kids, and like Wag said, you've got to get kids invested younger. Is they've got to do a better job of getting into the inner cities and getting those kids that into baseball instead of them migrating to basketball or football. That's a big thing right there.
Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is. I think the Cardinals do a pretty good job of that. Not a great job at it, but I think they do a good job. I'd like to think more teams are doing that as well. But yeah, you got to reach the youth at an early age and really get them involved and help them out too. I mean, baseball it's not as expensive as hockey. It's definitely not as cheap as soccer or basketball, but it's still a relatively cheaper sport, but you still have to find ways to help families out to get these kids involved as well. And hopefully you can find more talent in the youth of America. Speaking of youth, a guy that's not so young anymore, which is crazy because I remember him coming up into the league. Ryan Braun is leaning towards retirement. He hasn't picked up a bat since the end of 2020. He's been dealing with some injuries the last couple of years, as we know, but he's a notorious Cardinal killer, a guy that the Cardinals just absolutely hated. Yes, he had the steroid issue as well, but do you guys think that we've seen the end of Ryan Braun?
Scott?
I kind of do. Unless Milwaukee, I can see Milwaukee giving him a call, in June or July or something if they need a bat, and maybe he comes back. I don't think anybody else is going to go after Ryan Braun, and it all goes back to the steroid thing, and not so much the fact that he cheated, but the fact that he basically tried to ruin somebody else's life by lying and accusing them of doing nefarious things when it was all him. And so I think a lot of organizations are not going to touch Ryan Braun with a 10-foot pole.
And it's not just that, Scott. I mean, I'm going to go take that a step further. He did that on live TV. He did that on MLB Network in a press conference on the Brewers practice facility or wherever they were in spring training, basically calling somebody out. You don't do that. I mean, it looks worse when it's on, like when you're specifically saying it on live TV. That just doesn't, it's not a great look. I agree.
Well, no, it's not when you lie and literally try to ruin somebody else's life because you did something wrong. I mean, you can go on TV and do all kinds of stuff, but when you actually do something that underhanded, I mean, it's amazing to me that the Brewers have kept him around as long as they have.
And I'm shocked, Scott, because this almost reminds me of a Roger Clemens type. Like, he did confess, but when he wasn't confessing, it seemed like he
didn't throw anybody under the bus like that. He didn't say, "Oh yeah, this guy screwed up his job."
No, I mean, I'm just saying the constant lying. I didn't do it. And then
you could say the same thing about Barry Bonds, about Mark McGwire, about Sammy Sosa, all these guys that have been accused of it. And yeah, some of them have come clean at points, but some of them haven't. Who wants to be caught in that lie? I mean, these guys are doing it. So once again, all of them lied, but he tried to ruin somebody's career. Knowing he did it. None of these other guys are sitting there saying, "Oh, well, the guy who sold me this didn't tell me any of this stuff. I can't believe he would do that to me." No, they all knew willingly what they were doing. He just took it a step further and tried to ruin a guy's life and career.
Yep, and you don't do that. Anybody with pride should never do that. And Ryan Braun didn't have pride there, but great career. Otherwise, I mean, he didn't. I don't know how many times he was cheating and wasn't caught. I mean, Wags, do you think this guy?
Do you think steroids are something you can pop once and that's cheating, and then the other times you're not? I mean, steroids is something that takes a long time to work and develop.
Is he a good player outside of roids? Would he be as good of a pure player as he was on roids?
I'd look at his number. I'd look at his numbers post being caught,
and they weren't nearly as good. He wasn't the same player after he got caught. He had injury issues. I mean, he was still a solid player, but he wasn't the MVP superstar player that he was before he got caught.
Yeah, he was a good player. He wasn't exactly that level of player anymore, and it showed. That's sad, too, because I feel like he could have been what could have been was Ryan Braun, not for roids. Because that guy, I still think would be a good hitter.
How do you know that everything that made him good wasn't the steroids? How do you know that he was a good ball player before that?
Just you could see the talent, though. You could see the talent. You could see the body language on this guy. I mean, I saw a good ball player in him. I think he would have been a good ball player outside of steroids. Can I say that for sure? No, but it's my gut feeling.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with a gut feeling. So some scores from spring training. The Rays beat the Red Sox 3-2. Marlins 6-5 over the Astros. Braves a 5-1 winner over the Twins. Yankees 4-2 over the Phillies. The Orioles a 12-3 victory over the Pirates. 4-0 Blue Jays over the Tigers. The Cardinals a 4-2 winner over the Nationals. Steven Strasburg left with a calf injury. That's not good for Washington. The Cubs and White Sox tied at 4 after 10 innings. Indians 7-3 over the A's. Royals a 6-1 victory over the Giants. 6-2 Diamondbacks over the Mariners. Reds 7-3 over the Angels. Dodgers a 12-5 victory over Colorado. And the Padres 13-3 over the Brewers in 8 innings. Let's jump back to Steven Strasburg real quick. Another injury potentially for Steven Strasburg. This is one of those guys that could have been, I don't like a Ryan Braun, could have been so much more. He's been a pretty good pitcher, but I mean, where are we at with him? Is he going to last much longer?
I don't think so, man. And I almost want to compare him to a Michael Wacha type. You know, a guy who has great stuff but can never stay healthy. Now, do you see where I can make that comparison, or is that a non-comparison in your eyes?
Non-comparison in my eyes, because Walker really had the one good year, the half a good year that he went to the playoffs and won the playoff MVP and the NL MVP. But Strasburg's done it a lot of years. I mean, he's had multiple years where he's been a Cy Young contender. He's had injuries, but even in years where he's been injured, he's come back and pitched and been a really, really good pitcher. So, he's missed out on some things because of the injuries, but he's still one of the top 10 or 15 pitchers in baseball.
That he is. Let's get some NBA scores here before we get out of here. The Nets take down the Knicks in the Battle of New York, 117-112. Hornets a 122-116 victory over the Kings. Giannis a triple-double tonight in the 133-122 victory over the Wizards. The Spurs a 109-99 victory over the Pistons. Ongoing, the Clippers are up on the Mavs, 103-96. Nuggets 57, Pacers 49. Suns a 52-46 lead over the Grizzlies, and about 5 minutes to go in the first quarter, the Lakers hold a 14-12 lead over the Warriors. Probably the absolute game of the night between the Lakers and Warriors. Gonna have to actually jump off and catch the end of that game myself. Come on, it's the Warriors and Lakers. Hopefully LeBron goes down. Any final thoughts before we head out tonight, guys?
I just have one question. Going back to baseball real quick. Joe, are you about to eat crow on the Tyler O'Neill thing? Because the guy's hitting 570 now this spring?
He's hitting 500 now, and you know what? I like what Tyler O'Neill's doing, but we saw this last year during summer camp. I want to see if he can do it during the entire regular season. We saw him have a shorter stroke, and it didn't really translate into the regular season. Now, granted, last year's regular season wasn't regular, but I kind of want to see it translate to the regular season before I can judge Tyler O'Neill.
Yep, I definitely want to see it during the regular season as well. That's coming up quickly, and we'll have more breakdowns of Major League Baseball and the Cardinals, especially as we go on in the next couple of weeks leading up to opening day. All right, for Joe, for Scott, I am Wags. Thanks for joining us tonight here on Crunch Time Nightly. Make sure you come back at 9 o'clock tomorrow night here on ASTV Productions for another episode. Till then, have a great rest of your evening and a great day tomorrow.